Hello, and welcome to another amazing episode of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationship
From
from surviving
surviving to
to
thriving.
thriving.
Today on TMC, we'll be discussing Don't Settle for Surviving.
You and I just recently
Yeah.
finished recording for a marriage summit,
Yes.
and we talked about not settling for surviving
Absolutely.
in your relationship and in your marriage. So we said, hey, let's jump on over
Go
to
ahead.
TMC
Right.
and keep on talking about not settling for surviving.
Right.
Don't settle. You don't have to settle. We don't want you to settle for surviving in your relationship.
Mhm.
We talked about oftentimes how people and couples, how we settle for surviving in our lives and in our relationships, in our marriages. Some people settle for surviving on the job. I mean, this is what it is. Surviving is just you wanting to live beyond this situation,
Yeah.
live beyond this circumstance.
You're
I,
existing.
exactly. You're
Right.
just, it's almost like mulling through. Let's get through the day without fighting today. Let's get through
Yeah.
the work day. Let's,
And that's the thing about surviving. I mean, you really look at surviving. Surviving, I mean, let's be honest about it. If you're surviving, you made it. I mean,
mm-hmm,
you're still making it.
mm-hmm.
I mean, you still living. I mean, you still doing okay. You're still maintaining. I mean, you're surviving. You're surviving
Mhm.
through life. I mean, your marriage is surviving. But one of the things we wanted to focus on is really shifting from surviving to thriving
Thriving,
because
yes.
because here's the thing: when you're thriving in your relationship, I mean, it's surpassed that surviving mode. That surviving mode is like it's like you just have enough gasoline in your car to keep going. But when you're thriving, I mean, you're rolling on a full tank. That
Mhm.
means when things happen and you get busy and life get challenging, because you had that full tank of gas, I mean, it's not even gonna bother
Yeah,
you. You're
yeah.
not even gonna be stressed
Mhm.
out because why? I got a full tank of gas, thriving in your business, thriving in your life. I mean, it's so important.
Surviving. When your relationship is at a standard where it's just surviving, when those tough things come, that's normally when it
Yeah.
chokes out.
Yeah.
When financial issues come, or a sickness come, or a loss come, or anything, when there's a challenge, because let's be honest, life happens.
Yeah.
Things are gonna happen in life. But if you just barely hanging on, if you just existing, you just going through the motions, when problems arise, when things happen, that's when we want to throw in the towel because I'm already running on empty. I don't
Yeah.
have anything left. But if you're in a state that you have a mindset that I'm in a thriving relationship, when your relationship is moving
Mm.
in that thriving mode,
Yeah.
you know it doesn't mean that things don't happen and things don't come, because life happens, life comes, but you're ready for it. You're like, okay,
Mm.
this is here. We're gonna get through this. Okay, maybe this hurts a little bit, but we're gonna make it through this. What are we
Yeah.
learning from this? How are we gonna be better after this? We still good. We love each other. We're gonna keep growing. We're still developing. This came to make us stronger. That's the mindset you have when you're thriving versus when you're surviving. It's like you have nothing left. Already on the edge.
Yeah.
So any little thing pushes you over and you want to quit. You want to give in. That's when we start talking about giving up, leaving, separating,
Yeah.
divorcing, all those type of things, because we've only been surviving for the last 6 months. We've been surviving. We've been barely getting through it. We're surviving work. We're surviving the kids. We're surviving occasionally having sex with each other. We're just surviving.
When I give you a good example of surviving and thriving, I remember a few years ago, I was diagnosed with thyroid disease.
Mhm,
My heart
mhm.
rate, I mean, sometimes got up to almost 200 beats per minute. I mean, it was crazy. I
Like
mean,
it was jumping out your
right. I
chest.
mean, you can
Mhm,
literally feel it. I mean, it was
mhm.
beating so hard. So they had to give me some blood thinner, beta blockers. I mean, these things, I mean, it affected our intimacy, it affected our sex life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, you really look at that situation. If we were just surviving, I mean, who knows what could have happened? But because those thriving moments and thriving, in the past or whatever, I mean, it really, those little small things, I mean, it doesn't matter as much, different things when things happen, it doesn't matter as much. I believe that's because, of having that thriving relationship. And
Absolutely.
thriving relationship is so important, like again, having that tank on full.
It's funny that you say tank, because the thing that was in my mind when you were finishing up the sentence, it was gasoline.
Yeah.
I'm thinking surviving is like you using unleaded, and then thriving is when you use Supreme.
Ah,
When you
yeah.
use Supreme, so
Yeah.
when you use Supreme, it cleans out the things in your car, and your car runs better. I saw that on a commercial. Now I don't know
Absolutely.
if it's
Yeah,
true, but I seen it.
that's your VTech. Okay.
So yeah, so we want to share with you all today. We always share with you
Yeah.
things from our lives,
Yeah.
what works for us, how we do things. So we share that with the TMC listeners, and you can take what'll work for you. And if it works for us, and if it works for you, then it's great. You know, whatever part works for you. We
Yeah.
hope all parts work for you, but
Yeah,
you know,
and we share what's working for us because you guys are family. I mean, you
absolutely,
guys are family. You guys are our ride or die. You know, every week we join in here together. So I mean, you guys are family, and we want, like we say, taking your marriage from surviving to
survivor to
thriving.
thrive, and we want you to run on premium as well.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
So
So
let's
let's
jump in.
yeah. So we're gonna jump into it. We have four things we're talking about. Don't just settle for surviving. The first thing we want to talk about is being God centered.
Absolutely. This is how it works for us. And we believe that is essential because we are believers. We are Christians. We believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely,
And we believe that if your
absolutely.
marriage, if your relationship is God centered,
Mm,
this is God being the center of your marriage. This is the Spirit of God. This is the essence of God. This is your
absolutely.
marriage embodying everything that God is. God is love. God is
Mm,
grace. God is kindness. God is
yeah,
compassionate.
yeah.
God is faithful. God is loving. God is honest. God is true. And this is your
Yes.
marriage embodying all of those things. The things that we love about God, that He never gives up on us, that He's always there for us, that He is always concerned about us. This
Absolutely.
is your marriage embodying that, remembering that our marriages are a reflection of our relationship with Him, and how we love on each other is showing who we are, as far as how I love His son,
Yeah.
how He loves God's daughter, because He's God's son. I'm married to His son. I'm God's daughter. He's married to His daughter. So we want marriages that honor God, marriages that bring honor and glory to the name of God.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, then when God sent it, I mean, you have things to reference to, like
Exactly.
the book of Ephesians, when they talk about how a man should love his wife and
Mhm.
how a wife should, the word that people don't like, submitting to the
Submit to her
husband.
husband.
I want to
Mhm.
deal with that real quick because
Okay.
I really believe, because this is the thing, me
Come
being a
on.
man of God, me following God, me, God's been number one.
Hey.
We talk about submitting, but here I am, you have a man, a husband that submit himself to God.
Mhm.
So by me submitting, correct me if I'm wrong, by me submitting myself to God, it's easy for you to submit yourself to
Absolutely.
me. And I think a lot of times we have to really be careful with that, especially men. We talk about, we want our wives to be submissive to
Mhm.
us, but
Mhm.
we don't want to submit to anything.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure as men, as husbands, that we submit ourselves to God in
Absolutely.
order for our wives to submit herself to us,
Mhm.
because it's very difficult. Because here's the thing, if the wife is submitting herself to her husband, but the husband is not submitting himself to God, then now everything is
Everything's out of whack.
misalignment. It's
Out of
out of
whack.
order, it's out of line.
Yeah.
The husband submitting to the
Uh-huh.
Godhead.
Godhead.
Then you have the head of the household.
Mhm.
Then you have the wife, the COO, the
That's right.
COO,
That's
the chief
operating
operating
officer.
officer. I mean, you know what? We can look at it like this. I mean, God being the owner of the marriage, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
God is allowing me to be the CEO, and
Mhm.
you're being the
COO.
COO in
Exactly.
the relationship, and having that thing. And so the CEO and the COO in the relationship collaborating and keeping that marriage thriving, and not just surviving. When I want to get into the next thing. So the first thing is God. The
Yes.
second thing is intentionality.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
we
And
have to be intentional.
absolutely. And we talk about this. This is nothing new to TMC. We talk about this all the time. If you go back and look at any podcast, you're going to hear something in there about you being intentional,
Yeah.
because in our lives we bear a responsibility.
Mhm.
We have to be intentional about the things that we want. If you
Yeah.
think about anything you've ever gone after in life, you bear the responsibility of intentionally seeking that thing. And so in your marriage, you want to be intentional.
Mhm.
You want to be focused. You want to be laser. You want to be targeted
Yeah.
on quality time. You want to be intentional about choosing to love your spouse. You want to be intentional about proper communication. You want to be intentional about your intimate relationship. You want to be intentional about your sex life. You want to be intentional about being a better you
Yeah.
for the unit,
Yeah.
for the union. You have to be intentional about being a better you in order for the union to be better. Because if both parties are intentional about being a better version of themselves, then the union will be better.
And you know what? I like that, intentionality, because those that are listening right now, I mean, they're being intentional, becoming a better you
Exactly.
by listening to podcasts like
Mhm.
TMC and
Absolutely.
podcasts like Lead to Greatness. Really just being intentional about, in your relationship, intentional about building yourself up. Because if I can build myself up as a man, then I can be a better husband to
Hmm.
my wife. And
Absolutely.
if you can build yourself up
As a
as a
woman,
woman,
then I could be a better helpmate to my husband.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's good. I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. I mean, so that's very, very important, for us to be intentional, being intentional about your quality time.
Hmm.
Quality time is very
Yeah.
important, not getting distracted. It's like, okay, when we're having that quality time, let's spend time together
Hmm.
and not being on my phone, or we're having a
Absolutely.
conversation and you on your phone checking social
Absolutely.
media. I mean, no, we have to be very, very intentional about this. I mean,
Hmm.
being very intentional about the time, not being on social media, but being intentional about our time. So all these things is very, very important.
Absolutely. And when you were talking, I was thinking about the podcast we did last week. We did the Sex Talk podcast last week, but you have to be intentional about that. That's
Yes.
a part of marriage. We know that it is. And it's also one of the top things that married couples struggle with. So you have to be intentional about your intimacy. You have to be intentional about sharing with your spouse. You have to be intentional about being open, being honest, being vulnerable with your spouse about your intimacy and what expectations or your ideas are. And you have to be focused in order for, and I don't want to mean focused like you studying, but you're focused on that part of your relationship being better. So you're focused on it as far as we talked about communicating about
Mhm.
it, talking from a standpoint of what you like, and talking about your past, any experiences or
Let's
anything
let's
that
let's let's
affect you.
talk about that. So we're
Hmm.
talking about proper communication
Hmm.
with the intentionality. Being
Yeah.
intentional about proper communication. I know this one of the things, even in our marriage, one of
Hmm.
the things out of most of the things. I mean, it really wasn't quality time, things like
Hmm.
that. Proper communication was one of the
Communication, yes.
things that was one of the reckless situations in our
Hmm.
marriage. And so when at one point of our marriage did you realize that, man, we have a communication issue?
One morning, I was getting ready for work and we were talking about something. I don't even remember what it was about, but I know by the time I got to the Beltway, I was hot.
Mm,
I had went from 0 to 10 in a few
yeah,
seconds, and
yeah.
my mind was just going, going, going. And you called me back and you said, "Babe, I'm not your enemy. We're
Mm,
on the same team."
yeah.
And I was like, "Okay." And I kind of just, kept rolling, and I drove up the Beltway, kept going up 249, went to work. By the time we reconnected again for the second conversation, what you said embedded in my head. And when we started to talk, and you said what you were saying, I said what I was saying, and we realized that we were both saying the same thing.
Mm.
We were just saying it
Yeah.
different. And obviously, I wasn't listening because we were saying the same thing. And although we were saying it different, I had in my mind what I believed you were saying. So that's when I learned, like, okay, we have to learn how to communicate better. There's obviously a communication problem here because my then job in our home was 30 minutes. So there's been a 30-minute lapse, and there's been the confusion and misunderstanding for 30 minutes. And we've been saying the same thing all along.
Yeah. And that was the crazy part about it, because we were saying the same thing and we both frustrated with each other,
Exactly.
all because of improper
Improper communication.
communication. And what's the best thing is, because a lot of time we look at communication, or properly communication, what we're talking about, and we're thinking about the way we talk.
Mhm.
But really it's about us listening.
Listening.
I
Hmm.
mean, there's two forms of communication. There's talking
Speaking
and
and
there's the
listening.
listening
Sending and
aspect.
receiving.
Right.
Hmm.
Exactly. So I mean, we have to understand. I mean, the communication, I mean, it's not a monologue. I mean, it's a dialogue. So we
Hmm.
have to really listen to each other. It's
Hmm.
so, so, so important, because the whole goal of communication is to understand before being understood.
Absolutely.
So the
Absolutely.
first thing is God. The next thing is intentionality. The third thing is mentoring. Let me ask you this question: Why do we need a mentor coach?
We believe that you need a mentor or a coach because you need someone in your life to hold you accountable.
Mm,
You need someone that will speak life to you
yeah.
and your relationship and your marriage, but you also need someone that will encourage you, that will challenge you, someone that will hold you accountable and
Yes.
responsible for your actions,
Absolutely.
responsible for the choices you make, someone that will be real with you and tell you the truth, someone that will help you see. They will be unbiased in the situation. And when it comes to your relationship, they'll be unbiased.
Yeah.
When it comes to your life, they'll be unbiased. And they will be open and honest with you about the part that you
Right.
play in whatever the situation is. You need someone, and you also need some. The coaching and mentoring would also allow you to be able to bounce things off of people when you have miscommunications and misunderstandings. And sometimes when you do that, you can just be talking to someone and you realize, I didn't explain that right. So the coaching or mentoring, it does a wonder for your accountability and helps you.
Right. And we coach marriages during their good seasons. And also, we coach marriages when, when things got real tough and challenging in their relationship, we begin to coach them. And one of the things I always realize, during this time, it's always easy to see, your spouse
Yeah, it's
where they
always.
went wrong, the mistakes they made. It's
Hmm.
always to see their faults,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
it's difficult to see your
To
own.
see your own.
So we need that person. We need that person on the sideline, standing in the gap to see from both perspectives, because the only thing we can see, and to be honest, we talked about this before, but perspectives. Your spouse, whatever they feel or whatever they saying is correct. I mean, you can't call it a lie or
It's their
whatever. It's
feelings.
their truth. It's their truth. My truth is my truth. Your truth is your truth. But having the mentor can be able to help us
Hmm.
kind of figure
And
out.
see, what I think is the mentor and the coach does what you talked about. I think I don't know if it was in Lead to Greatness or whatever, but you talked about if I'm looking ahead right now, I see one thing.
Yeah,
You're looking ahead that way, you see
I see
something
that.
else.
I don't see
But
what you
what the
see.
mentor or the coach does is swap.
Yeah.
And now you're like, oh, I see what
Because
he
the
sees.
mentor and coach can see both
They
angles.
exactly, they're in the middle and
Yeah,
they can see both
they can
angles.
see
So
everything.
now
Yeah,
the mentor and or the coach can see both angles and they know, oh, you need to turn around.
yeah,
You need to turn around. Now let's talk about what y'all see.
absolutely.
And that's why it's important to have one,
Yeah,
because it is important for you to see the other person's perspective.
yeah.
And it's our human nature. Even the Bible says that every man's ways is
Right
right
in
in
his
his
own
own
eyes.
eyesight.
Yeah, yeah,
So we always think that we're right
yeah,
because from our point of view, this is how I feel, this is what is happening.
yeah.
But how you feel is not always what's happening, but that's what it feels like to you. So
Mm.
you need someone that will interject, someone, and this can't just be no anybody. It has to be someone that will be unbiased. So they're not going to choose his side or your side. They're not going to choose her side or his side. They're just going to be
Mm.
unbiased and look at the facts.
Yeah.
They're going to look at the facts and see from both perspectives what's really going on.
Right. And before we move on to the next thing, I do want to say, because a lot of things, and we learned this later on, but most of the time we don't feel we need a coach
Mm-hmm.
until things get
Till it
bad. But
get
this is
bad.
the thing. You look at sports. I mean, the basketball players, football players, they don't wait
They
till
can already be good and they get a coach
to get
to get
better.
better.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And I think that's what how we need to look at our marriages and
Yeah.
getting coaches and mentors in our life. Things don't have to be bad before you get a coach and
Mm-mm.
mentor in your life. Do it. Get somebody, get a counselor, whoever, get somebody right where you are. If your marriage is good, is your marriage is surviving, get you a coach and a mentor so you can get to the thriving level.
That's
It's
right.
like, I want to be better. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, each and every one of us, we should live our life where we always want to be better. I don't want to be the same. I want to be better than I was yesterday. I want to
Absolutely.
be better than I was last week. I want to
Mm-hmm.
be better than I was last
Oh
month.
yeah.
I want to be better than I was last
Oh
year,
yeah.
5 years ago, a
Mm-hmm.
decade ago. I want to be better and better. So it's very important for us to get mentors and coaches in our lives to really help us to see things we can't see,
Yeah.
to help us get to that point in our life. It's that goal. It's like you have that goal. We need that accountability partner. We need somebody on the outside that's going to hold us accountable, and somebody coming to us and asking, did you do this? Did you do that? Did y'all
Mm-hmm.
do this? Did y'all do that? And we need this in our life.
Absolutely.
So there you go. Find a mentor in your life. So the last thing we want to talk about is commitment.
Absolutely. And the commitment, your commitment, you committing to a thriving marriage is you investing. It's
Mm.
you being dedicated. It's you putting in. It's your willingness to be better. It goes back to what we said in the beginning. It's you saying, I want a marriage or I want a relationship that's better than surviving.
Mm.
I don't want us to just live through this, because that's what surviving is. I just want to live through this.
Right.
Whatever, however it go, as long as I'm still living on the when it comes to an end or
Yeah.
on the other side. We're talking about a thriving marriage where you're increasing, you're prospering, you're
Surviving is
growing,
normal.
you're developing. Exactly. You're living an extraordinary marriage where you love each other, where you're having fun, where you enjoy each other's company. Yet you're not always going to agree. That's understandable, but you know how to work through the disagreements, and you can sometimes agree to disagree. But this is your determination for your marriage to be
You know,
thriving.
you mentioned disagree, but this is the thing: when your
Mhm.
marriage is thriving, disagreement doesn't matter that much.
Exactly, because you understand that you're two separate people. So you're going to have two different thought
Right.
processes. And you may think one thing and I may think something else. But when we're in a thriving relationship,
Mm.
then I'm open to see your point of view and you're open to see my point of view. And although we may still take a different stance on something, we respect each other's point of view.
You know, a thriving marriage, it reminds me of teamwork.
Hmm.
I mean, you have a team player. This is the thing. I mean, one person may not be a good shooter.
Uh-huh.
You have all these different people on the team. And what's so awesome about a team is everybody don't have to be good at everything.
No.
But
That's
when
I
we're
like
all
that.
but when we're all good at something,
Yeah.
we can
Makes the
thrive
team
as a
better and
team.
thrive as a
And that's
team.
what's that is so key. So commitment is right. I'm doing
Yeah.
my part as an individual. I'm trying to develop as an individual. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. It's like, okay, I take care of this, you take care of that. You take care of this, you take care of that.
Come
When we
on.
really begin to thrive in our marriage, because here's the thing, we realize in our marriage along the way that we are totally different. I mean,
Different.
we have the
Yeah.
same goals, we have the same purpose.
Our core.
Well,
Mhm.
our core is the same, but our personality, I mean, it is totally different. I mean, we are nothing alike. I mean, I'm organized, she's
Sure
not.
not.
She's
Mhm.
spontaneous, I'm not. I mean, we're so different in so many ways. I love changes. She don't. I mean, so we have so many differences. But here's the thing. One of the things, and this one of the things when you've been and going back to being intentional, actually
All of them.
going back to
Yeah.
all of them, going
They
back to God
connect.
intentionality and
Mentorship.
mentoring
Mhm.
and commitment is what allow our marriage to thrive is we get to the point in our marriage when we're looking and say, you know what, you're weak in this area,
Mhm.
but I'm strong.
Absolutely.
I'm strong in this area, but you're weak.
Mhm.
So now, if I can take my strength, you can take your strength, and we can do again, going back to the sport analogy, you have the best of both worlds
Mhm.
in this partnership.
Mhm.
I mean, you're winning. You're
Yeah.
better than
A
winning.
winning
I
team.
mean, you're the winning team and you're thriving. It's like, man, I'm not just barely winning. We are killing the game.
Yeah.
And this
Yes.
is the thing I want you to kill in your marriage. I want you to don't settle for surviving. I want you
Mm-mm.
to thrive. I want you
Yes.
to
Yes.
win. And this is the thing when you win and when you're winning and you're thriving big, that means everything attached to
That's
you
right.
begin to do the same
Yes.
thing. And
Yes.
you have a thriving marriage, then your friends that's surviving begin to thrive. And the people around you begin to
Your
survive. Your
kids.
kids
Mhm.
begin to thrive. They thriving in school. Why? Because they don't have to deal with all the arguments in the house. And now the husband is happy, the wife is happy, the kids is happy, the dog and the cat is happy because they not getting kicked by the kid because mama fussed at him and he can kick the dog before he went in his room. Everybody is happy. Well, we're talking about thriving marriage, thriving relationships,
Yes.
thriving in
Yes.
everything you do. When you're thriving in your marriage, you know what? Guess what? Your business is going to thrive. When you're
Mhm.
thriving in your marriage, your money is going to thrive. When you're thriving in your marriage, invest right now, dedicate right now. When you're thriving in your marriage, things gets better. things get better. Things begin to come together. Yes, yes, yes. I know that somebody right now saying, man, life is not perfect. Things happen. You're sure right. But you know what? When you're thriving in life and when things happen, it's all good. Here's the thing. I'm going to give you an example. Scenario is two people. One person thriving in their finance and one person is not. Let's say, for instance, one person, they don't have in their bank account, in their savings account, they have $100, right? And we'll say somebody else that's surviving. 100 in your bank account, that you're surviving. You're making it, but you're surviving. But then you have somebody that have 10,000 in their bank account. So here's the thing. Let's say you have a flat tire, right? Mm-hmm. The tire is going to cost you $200 to get this tire repaired.
Oh yeah.
That's a circumstance. That's a problem that happened. But the person that have on it, person that have $100 in the bank
is now dying, choking out.
There you go. The person that's surviving, that person is that's that individual. Say, oh man, the devil is showing up busy. You know, the devil coming all kind of way. That's that individual that had that $100 in the bank. But that person that had that 10,000 in the bank. The same situation happened to both people. But the one that had the 10,000 not even going to recognize the devil and not even going to give the devil credit because he's striving so much the devil can't even influence in that area.
And here's the thing, you just said that. So you said you said you have a person that has $100 in the savings and you have a person that has 10,000 in savings, and then the flat tire comes. Yeah. So when we talk about a thriving relationship for the significant other, the couple that has that $100 in the bank, but now you got to buy a $200 tie, you're you're in $100 deficit. You're in a hole. There's going to be some confusion. There's going to be some arguing about who spent that other $100. There's going to be some you not producing, you not providing, whatever. You're going to have all these things that are possible that's going to create issues. But for the couple that has the 10,000 in the bank and that tire that needs to be purchased is $200, they going down to Discount Tire and buy the tire.
No. They gonna go down. They gonna go down to Discount Tire. They not only gonna buy the tire, they gonna replace all of them.
And so, but with that being said, they don't. All it has to be is a phone call. Babe, I need to get a new tire. Or babe, I gotta go to Discount Tires. The tire is flat. The tire needs to be replaced. That's it. Or babe, I got here to replace one, but I replaced all four. That's gonna be a simple conversation because we are financially thriving as a couple, so this doesn't cause an issue for us. But if we're financially surviving, because remember in the beginning we said many people that are surviving, you're not just surviving one area of life, you're barely surviving financially, you're barely surviving in work, you're barely surviving emotionally, physically, and all these. You're just making it. So for the person that is thriving in their finances, those things are considered a hiccup. It's like, and matter of fact, I like to call exactly. I would like to call it a normal occurrence in life because you drive, you have to replace tires.
It's just like life. I mean, the only person gets upset when it rains is the person without the umbrella.
Exactly, and so it's a normal occurrence in life. You take care of it and you keep moving. Now you buy the whole set of tires, so your $10,000 balance has now decreased to $9,000, but you are still good. You're beyond surviving. You're thriving because you're not in a deficit. And that's what we're talking about. The difference between surviving and thriving is when you're surviving, you're on edge to being in a deficit. When you're thriving, when life occurrences happen, when whatever you experience, you're still good. You're still good. And that's what we want to get to. All of these four things are important to us. God, and being intentional about our relationship, having a mentor, having a coach, someone to guide you, hold you accountable, and your commitment to being a better you and to being committed to that person that you're with. That is awesome and is what's going to lead to a thriving marriage.
Absolutely.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of TMC. And if you did, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified when we upload a video every week. And if you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps us get the word out. And we invite you to head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, where my husband is interviewing entrepreneurs and great leaders every week.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.